I'm going to go ahead and start bids. I'll do select programs, SQL Server 2008, and select SQL Server Business Intelligent Development Studio. And because I have Visual Studio Professional installed, that loads the full version of Visual Studio, but I have access to all the integration services features. I want to go ahead and open up that package I just created. So I'm going to File, Open, File. Go to that Demos directory, and there's the package. Double-click on it. And this shows the package designer within bids. So here's the control flow of that package that the wizard created. As you can see, it has a single data flow task, and I can double-click on that to open up this other designer for data flows. And you can see that it has the source, the product table, and then the destination, the text file. So this has created a full package for you. I'm going to open up another solution now. And I'll go over to my C file. And open up this multi-project solution file. As I mentioned earlier, BIDS is able to host multiple projects within a single solution. And that's what I have here. So if I expand Solution Explorer a little bit, you can see that I have an analysis services project. It doesn't actually have anything within it, but you can create an analysis service project and have it in the same solution as an integration services project. And you can also have a reporting services project here as well. So if you have a complete solution in which you're using all of the elements of Microsoft's Business Intelligence product, you're able to load them all up and work with them together within BIDS. The nice thing about the Integration Services project is that you can create as many packages as you want within a single Integration Services project. So keep that in mind. As your packages get more and more complex to handle more and more complex scenarios, you can break them down into multiple packages, and then Integration Services has support for executing all of those packages from a parent package as well. Now, when you create a new Integration Services project, rather than just opening a package as a standalone file, BIDS exposes some additional sections of the interface, such as access to data sources and data source views, SSIS packages folder where all the packages go, as well as a miscellaneous folder. So you can include various support files, text files. Maybe you have a set of lookup data that's contained within an Excel spreadsheet. You can include that all as part of that solution. The nice thing about the data sources is that it allows you to create and reuse a connection string among various packages. Now, typically when you create a package, you can have a single connection manager, but that's embedded within that particular package. By creating a data source, you can create a connection manager that reuses the connection string. This has the benefit that if you deploy this package to another server and you have to change the connection string, you can change it in this one place, the data source, and that will automatically be picked up in all of the connection managers in all of the packages within that solution. Data source views are based on data sources, but they support filtering the database schema. So you can create package objects based on data source views, which streamlines working with lists of database objects. Then, as I mentioned, the miscellaneous folder, you can put in various other kinds of files. Now, when you have an Integration Services package open or solution open, you have this additional menu item called SSIS. I don't have a package open at the moment, so I only have the Work Offline and the Debug Progress Reporting option here. But if I open a package, then I get some additional options. I can configure logging, package configurations, digitally sign the package, create variables, create connections, work offline, log events, and create new connections, as well as view different portions of the package. So when you have a package open in the designer, then you have these various other options. And during this course, we'll explore a lot of these different options. The package designer also hooks in to the tabbed designer format of Visual Studio. So I can have multiple packages open, and I'll have multiple tabs there. But also within a single package, I have these various tabs. And I'm going to talk about these in just a moment. As I'm working with different designers, the toolbox will configure itself to the different objects, the integration services components that are available for that particular object. I currently have the control flow selected here, so the toolbox lists all of the control flow items that I have available. And as you can see, there's a fair number of them, including the maintenance plan tasks. So that supports the drag and drop interface that makes it very easy to create different control and data flows. But the portion of BIDS that you'll be working with the most is going to be the package designer. Now, when you create a package from the import and export wizard, it automatically creates a single control flow with a data flow task. And let me go ahead and I'm going to start another instance of BIDS here. I have it on my quick start toolbar there. And I'm going to reopen that file. So again, here's the package that I created in the import and export wizard. I'll hide that to give us a little bit more screen space. And there's the control flow with a single data flow task, and then the data flow with the source and the destination. Now this is a very simple package. The import and export wizard is a great tool, but it's very limited in what it can do. You can go far beyond these simple packages when you use BIDS to customize the various packages. So for example, you might have a scenario where you need to move data to a data warehouse. And you might have an overall workflow that goes something like this. You can delete existing rows from a staging table. And if I go over to the toolbox here, a handy task for that might be executing transact SQL statements. For example, you can use a truncate table statement to empty a database table, and you can execute that statement using the execute SQL task. You can also download new data files from an FTP server, and for that you can use the FTP task. You can then loop through the various files, extracting their contents and inserting them into the SQL database file. For that you can use the for-each loop container, which lets you loop through a collection of objects. And then you can use various other tasks, such as the file system task, in order to read the contents of those files or process them in some way. You can also use the file system task to archive the files once they've been processed. And then you can send an email upon successful completion of the package, execution of the package, or if any problems occur. So that gives you kind of a basic idea of how a workflow can work and implement it using the various control flow tasks. So I'm going to open up another file. And for that, I'm going to go to the samples for the section and open up the nightly ETL. And there were some errors. This package isn't configured for the current environment. It really doesn't matter because I'm not going to execute it. But that points out that sometimes packages need to be configured for their environment. And as you can see, I have a red X on at least one of the tasks, which indicates that I have to do some sort of configuration change for this package before I'd be able to execute it. And I can see the various errors here down in the error list. In this case, it failed to decrypt the XML node, blah, blah, blah. And that's because I created this package on another machine. And you can see if there's any other errors, you can see them all down here. Okay, we don't need to worry about that in this particular case. But here is the sample of that kind of data warehouse loading scenario. So I can download the nightly data, which is an FTP task. I can unzip the FTP files using WinZip. I can clean the staging tables because I'm going to use temporary tables in order to hold the data as I'm processing it. And then I can process the flat files, those text files, loop through that folder, and load the data to SQL using a data flow task. And then I can use a file system task to archive and dump the flat files, and then finally send email on completion. All right, let me go back over to the products package here and go to the data flow. Now the data flow is a special form of a control flow task. Strictly speaking, it is a control flow task, but it's so complex and so specialized that it has its own tab, its own designer within BIDS. Over here in the toolbox, you can see that there's 3 different sections of components. There's data flow sources. These are the ways that you can read data for the data flow. There's data flow transformations, which are all of the built-in ways of changing the data, of modifying it in various ways. So for example, you can use the derived column transformation in order to add a column to the data flow. You can copy columns. You can do conditional splits, which split the flow into various sections. So for example, you could split the data flow into 2 data paths based on whether a customer's total sales for the last year were $1 million or less. So that'd be one of many ways that you could use the conditional split. You can do lookups if you need to add columns that have additional information that are contained in, say, a database table. And you can merge and multicast data. And as you can see, there's a lot of different built-in transformations that you can use. And then finally, there's various destinations where you can output the data. To flat files, to Excel, to OLEDB files, to SQL Server compact destination, a SQL Server destination. So just about anywhere you would want to be able to output data, there's support within integration services. Now the important thing to understand when working with data flows is the concept of the data flow pipeline. The pipeline is a representation of the path that the data rows take from the source to the destination as they move through the various transformations that you design into the package. In this particular case, we just copied the data from a source table to a destination, so there was this very simple data path. But you can get far more complex and branch in various ways and perform different transformations on different subsets of the data. Now the representation of the data path within the data flow designer is through these arrows. And you can have various color arrows here. This is a green arrow, which indicates that this is the path that is going to be taken if the data can be successfully read from that product table. Now a red arrow indicates error outputs. If there's any problem reading the data, or more often the problem is some sort of data type problem, then you can implement an error output and redirect rows that have problems to another data path. So the scenario there is that you can separate any rows that have problems into, say, a separate text file and then handle those manually. But all of the rows that are able to be successfully stored in the destination are put there. So that's just one scenario that you can use an error output for. So that lets you handle different conditions using different data paths. Another part of BIDS is this connection managers pane down here at the bottom of the designer. And this is visible on most of the designer tabs. Most, if not all, control flow and data flow components require access to external resources. Certainly all of the sources do. You might use flat files, you might use some sort of email server, an FTP server, or a database. And you need to provide the information to connect to that source or destination somehow. And BIDS uses connection managers in order to do that. And you can manage those down here within the pane. This is the central interface within BIDS, where you can add, modify, and delete connections to those external resources. Just keep in mind that connection managers are stored within a single package. If you want to share connections across packages, then you need to create a data source that I mentioned over in Solution Explorer. And then you can reuse that connection string in various packages. Another tab is the Event Handlers tab. When you develop a package, you're actually programming. And when you execute the package, various events occur that you can hook into and create alternate control flows. This is very similar to how you respond to events when you're writing Visual Basic or C# code in .NET. So in integration services, these are control flows that execute in response to various package events. So I can select an executable and select the package level or drill down into the different objects contained within the package. This is a fairly simple package, so it's a fairly short list, but as you create more complex packages, this list will get quite a bit longer. And then once you select an object, you can then select an event handler, and as you can see, there's a number of events that you can respond to. And most often, you'll probably want to include tasks that will execute in response to some sort of error that occurs within the package. Then the final tab that is initially visible is the Package Explorer. One of the challenges that you'll face as your packages get more complex is that it's going to be difficult to see all of the components on either the control flow or the data flow designers. They just exceed the available space even if you have a large monitor at a very high resolution. So BIDS makes available this Package Explorer, which gives this hierarchical view of all of the components that make up this package. And as you can see, I can view various variables. I can drill down into the different connection managers and the various executables. So this provides a very handy way to explore the different parts of the package. And when you execute the package and anything goes wrong, you get any errors, this is a convenient place to get information about what errors occurred. There's one other tab that doesn't appear here right now, and that's the Progress pane. This occurs when you run the package within BIDS. And what the Progress pane does is it displays status information as the package executes so that you can see exactly what step it's currently executing, as well as various other kinds of information as the package executes. And this also provides various other kinds of helpful information if the package fails, although you can also use the output window in BIDS for that same kind of error information.